Hey gang, it's episode 100, so let's get into it right now.
Welcome to JimJim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, the show that explores reinvention in the digital age as it relates to career, creativity, and technology. Stay tuned for interviews with professionals, entrepreneurs, and creatives that have reimagined success and are making a pivot. If you'd like to listen to the entire back catalog, visit JimJim'sReinventionRevolution.com for instant access. And now, here's your host, JimJim.
Hey everybody, this is JimJim, and welcome to episode 100 of JimJim's Reinvention Revolution podcast. And today, I'm celebrating. Yeah, because it's 100 episodes, so it's just me today. And I wanted to take some time to give some shout-outs and thank yous for those that have been checking out the podcast and have been involved in the podcast. And also talk about, let's see, I got at least three here. 3 ways I've been reinventing myself, 3 things that have been going on in my personal life to continue my reinvention as it goes. Of course, if I, talk the talk here on the podcast, I need to walk the walk. So I want to go over those. But first of all, I just want to say, man, I can't believe it's 100 episodes. And I know that, this episode that I'm finally sitting down to record, it's been delayed, since the last release. It's been a couple weeks. I've been super busy, but I think honestly, just kind of deep down inside, it's been a struggle for me to sit down and record the 100th episode. And honestly, I'm trying to look inside myself and figure out why I've been putting it off. It's just like, I had, these grandiose ideas of, well, maybe I'll do a super special episode and I'll look back over the 100 episodes and, pick out, one person from each, 10 episodes. So, so 10 examples of, remembering something special or one takeaway that, my guest had provided for everyone. I had all these, big ideas of things I wanted to review and blah, blah, blah. But I kept pushing it off. And I think I realized that, I guess it does mean something to me, having done this for 100 episodes. It's maybe my 4th year doing it, something like that. And it's a feeling of accomplishment, to get to 100, because most podcasters, they pod fade, as they say in the industry, after about 5 or 6 episodes, and they decide to move on to something else. That's not me. I wanted to kind of stick it through and figure out what I can learn from it. And hopefully, the goal of it obviously is to provide value for people and to help other people learn. And so I felt like I couldn't do that if I just stopped at 5 or 6 episodes. I wanted to kind of see it through. And so the 100 does represent something for me personally in terms of accomplishment, like a good feeling, something that I feel like I've really, will be a milestone in the things that I've been able to do in my life, career-wise or personal, whatever. And when that comes closer to the surface, like recognizing it in your 100th, recording your 100th, podcast episode, there's something in me, again, this is about my own reinvention, that I got to keep rewiring the circuits in my brain that kind of shies away from that accomplishment or that thing that I know I want to go after or that I know will be good for me. And that stems from my family history, kind of where I grew up and the mindset that was there and that kind of thing. So that's a challenge within myself to continue changing around my mindset, to be, fruitful, to have my mind open, to be able to receive success and help others achieve their own success. So that's a real shift in mindset. And I know there's probably people listening out there that, if you're not sort of, there's a lot of negative thinkers out there, I guess, let's say. People that are not growth-minded. And, some people grow up in that growth mindset naturally. Some don't. I didn't naturally. I was always a little bit conscious of trying to, be open to growth, but, it's taken me, probably the last 30 years since I started really in the business world, to try to get my mind more open. And that's a struggle. And so I realized, probably there was something about I couldn't get this last episode recorded. So I decided to sit down today. You know what? I don't care if this is unorganized or sounds weird or I feel distracted doing it. I'm doing it. I'm pushing through. And that is just an example in itself of keeping focused and having that right mindset. So I don't know why I wanted to share that with you, but I guess that's what's been going on, why the episode has been delayed. But hopefully that demonstrates, to the folks out there that have their own challenges, once you kind of can name it, put a name on it, or figure out what it is for yourself, then you can decide whether you want to change it or not. You know what I mean? And I know some people have that same negative outlook, maybe that might be originally inside them, but you can change it. That's what I'm here to tell you. So you can change it around for yourself. So the two things I wanted to do with this episode today, aside from sharing that, is just say a big thank you. So a big thank you to everyone who's been listening, to all the listeners out there. So everybody who's listening to this episode right now, today, in whatever capacity, if you're driving to work in the morning, if you're commuting home at night, if you're on the treadmill right now, working up a sweat, if you're on your bike, biking somewhere, if you're in a co-working space, hanging out, I see you. I see all of you. At least I'm trying to. I'm trying to imagine where you might be listening to this. Maybe you're, babysitting your kids somewhere and you got your wireless headphones on and trying to pay attention to them, but listen to the podcast at the same time. Who knows? Or you're traveling, probably on a plane. So this is when I listen to a lot of podcasts. Is when I travel, I binge listen. Anyways, thank you for everyone who's been listening. Thank you for everyone who's taken the time to share an episode with someone else. So I think that's a cool way to discover podcasts, but also to, if any of the episodes help you or give you some insight to when you turn someone else onto it, it's super fun. Makes you feel good inside, and I know the person you share it with will get a kick out of it. I do this quite often with my podcast episodes, but also with others that I listen to, and I think, you know what, my buddy needs to hear this. So I do that a lot. So thanks to people that have shared the podcast, talk about it, posted about it in social media, forwarded emails if you're on the email list and all those kinds of things. So I appreciate that. I also want to thank all the guests that have been on the podcast. So every one of them, literally, I am humbled that they would take the time to come on. I think they're all amazing people. That's why they get to be on the podcast in the first place. Just my own, I guess, curation of the guests. And I learn a lot from them, and there's always some behind-the-scenes stuff that goes on, and where we try to help each other. I usually do what I can to help them, of course, to promote the episode, and but also when we're talking, I can give them perspective, and I know I've helped them think through some of the things that they're working on. And they help me too. So that's super fun. So I want to thank the guests that are out there that have been on again. Also, I want to thank the the industry part. So, there's a few tools I use in the background, all the technology, of course, you got Focusrite and ATR, Audio Technica. That's the hardware that I use. But there's some software things like the folks from Podmatch and other pieces of software out there that, I can't do the podcast as well without those things. So shout out to them as well. You know what I mean? And shout out to also anyone who's given me any feedback. So I wanted to mention that too. So the feedback is always interesting, and it's always super humbling when I get the feedback and realize, oh my gosh, this person actually listened to an episode and they actually went out of their way to tell me something or to say thank you or to, have a critique, even if it's critical or whatever. And I just wanted to mention one, which was, one of the most impactful things and not something I could have seen coming, I guess, just until, episode 88 when it happened. So just to give you a little reference. So Ryan Morgan, who was creating an SEO cohort, as he calls it, his dad was a professor, I believe. I'm trying to remember exactly. And so he was talking about how the impact that his father had on him and the stuff that he's doing now. and all those kinds of things. So after he recorded the episode, he sat down to listen to it with his father, because he was on, they listened to it together, and they really had an interesting moment together. And his father, realized, wow, that the impact that he had, and it's when you're relating to your family members, father to son or whatever, you might say things or talk directly to each other, but it's different when you're out of the conversation, you're just listening. So his dad was just listening, and so they had a moment of connection there. And he, sent me a note later about it, and I asked him if I could share this back then. So I'm just sharing it again. And it said, "Hey, thank you for that moment that happened for him." So that was really powerful in his life. So that's something that I know other things like that have happened, and it just gives me kind of goosebumps when I hear about it, and it keeps me motivated to keep going. And so, I just wanted to share that and say thank you again for that. Okay, let me get a sip of my Dunkin' Donuts. What am I drinking here today? My, what do they put on here? Medium iced original coffee, 3 hazelnut shots, regular cream and sugar. I didn't realize they put 3 shots in there, but it's pretty good, I must say. A little extra motivation to get this episode recorded. Anyways, all right, so let's go over these 3 things that have been going on lately, or endeavors or projects, whatever you want to call them, that I've been involved with that's more reinventions. Here we go. Okay. So the first one was just about a month ago, maybe a month and a half ago now. I dropped into Costa Rica for the first time. So I hadn't been traveling since the pandemic, for 2.5 years, wherever it's been, and out of the country, obviously. And I wanted to kind of break the seal on international travel and go to a place I'd never been before, and a region of the world that I've never been to before, Central America. And so I did, and it was super cool. Again, travel is one of the biggest hacks I can always talk about out there in terms of reinvention. Getting out of your routine, forcing you to think about other language and culture and food and all these things. It's really a pattern disrupt, and really refreshes you. And so it was super cool. Dropped into San Jose, which is the big major city right in the middle of Costa Rica, and then was on a tour for like a 8 or 9 day tour, where you jump in these little transit vans and they take you all over the place, basically. And Costa Rica is kind of a place where the roads are real windy, and all the cool places to get to are 2, 3, 4 hours away from San Jose, towards the coast or up into the mountains. So it just seemed like doing a tour and having that more curated for me was just a better use of my time, and easier to get around. And the roads can be super sketchy out there. Just FYI, if you haven't been. Meaning they have a lot of landslides because it rains so much down there. It's a whole big rainforest, And so you might get rerouted, and you'll never know where to go because you're just a tourist down there if you just drop in. So, anyways, it worked out super super cool. It was wild seeing the volcanoes and the rainforest and the beaches, and so much interesting territory to cover down there. And traveling across the border, so that's one of the things I wanted to figure out, if that had changed much or not, and how things were working these days. And one of the little nuances is if you're traveling internationally and you have your passport, when you're checking into the airport, that you have to see a gate agent now. Where before, you could just, if you had your passport or ID, you just, swiped it through the kiosk, whatever, and you could get your boarding pass if you weren't, checking luggage, whatever, or just go to the luggage drop-off afterwards. But now they have to see you face-to-face for some reason. And so when you slide your passport through the kiosk, it just craps out on you and says, "See gate agent." I'm like, okay. So I asked them about that, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you have to come here now." So, and this was true on the Costa Rican side as well, coming back. So a little FYI for people out there. Anyways, so that was super fun, and now I want to go back, of course. And it's closer to where I normally live, so it's rather than going around all the way around the world to Asia or something like that. So it was fun to discover. Okay, so number 2 here, like I said, I have 3 here. Total is I jumped in on Trevor's MileMethod. So one of the cats I met, this goes back 3 or 4 years ago now. I think when did we first meet? Maybe in Mexico? Maybe in Las Vegas? I'm not sure. As part of the Nomad Summit conferences, I think I ran into Trevor. Anyways, he's a points guy that takes advantage of the credit card points that are out there, so he can travel the world basically for free, get free flights, and stay in 4 or 5-star hotels for free. And it sounds crazy and ridiculous and fanciful and just a lot of BS perhaps to some people, but I'm giving it a try to see how he can help me. So, obviously there's credit card points you can get and frequent flyer miles you can get that, do turn into free flights at some point. So I've had some experience with it, and I tried to do a little bit of the credit card hacking on my own for the last few years before the pandemic because I was traveling a bunch. But since the pandemic, or during the pandemic, I wasn't going anywhere, so I stopped applying for credit cards. I was like, whatever. I was kind of out of my mind, not doing anything, just being locked down. So I just wasn't doing anything. So now that I'm getting back out there and traveling again, I thought, maybe now's the time to give this thing a try, see if Trevor can help me do it in a better, more focused way. So even though I've known him for a while, he just happened to have a seminar, a webinar, I guess, that he gave. So I noticed that he was having it. This was about maybe a month ago now, 5 weeks ago. And so I signed up for it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take his webinar and just see what his approach is with the webinar. Just kind of curious from a business point of view, just to see how he's approaching it, how he's collecting his leads and that kind of stuff, and what his presentation would look like. Even though I knew him and know that some of this would work, and so I'm sitting there through the presentation, and it was about an hour, I would say, total. And he's going through his backstory, which he's got a really cool backstory of how he got into it and why he's doing it. And he's been doing it, I think he said for about 11 years now. So he's pretty skilled at it, pretty experienced, I would say. But he kept giving these examples, like story after story of, this couple that bought his service, or this guy, or, that's a solo traveler, or a family, whatever, what they've been able to do, and, showing actual screenshots of the flights they bought, the points they used, all that kind of stuff. And it was pretty overwhelming. I must say, it was exhausting, honestly. Trevor, if you're listening out there, it was a bit exhausting because it's like, what I love about Trevor is like he's so technical and skilled and good at what he does, yet he still is trying to be better and being the best he can be. And he knows that, maybe on the surface some of this might sound just so far out and so scammy to someone that he really was going out of his way to like really prove it, like 100%, a million references, screenshots. I mean, there's no way you could make any of this stuff up, And it was super overwhelming because I'm like, okay, I get it, man, I believe it, But kudos to him because I thought it was a great webinar. Anyway, so it's fun to see him developing, his business as he goes along here. This is the first time he had a webinar. So, he's been able to do this through word of mouth, build his business through word of mouth all these years. And it seems like maybe he's trying to step up the business in a larger way, so he decided to do a webinar. And I think the response was so overwhelming that he has to hire out a what do you call it? Some people. He needs some people now. He needs help now. So he needs a virtual assistant. That's what I was thinking of. Like that to help him process all the applications and stuff. So anyways, I'm working with him, long story short, and applied for 2 credit cards, so I've been accepted. So now it's my time to spend. So, you have to spend money on these credit cards to get the large credit card bonuses for those that are familiar out there. And that's been a challenge for me. Again, another sort of reinvention to dive in and try this, but also to change my behavior in terms of spending. So I normally don't spend that much. I have certain things, costs that are monthly costs, the utilities, mortgage, that kind of stuff. And normally I don't spend, but I've been holding off spending really the last year because I knew maybe I would probably do this so that I would start traveling again. So I haven't really bought much for the new house other than outfitting the basement here with the sound material. So now I have to go out of my way to like go shopping, and it's kind of really a pain in the butt to think about, outfitting the house and doing all these things because I need to up my spending, a little bit higher than normal. So that's been a challenge, believe it or not. I know. Don't cry for me, Argentina. That's not what I'm saying. I'm not looking for anybody's sympathy here to spend money, but it is kind of a mindset shift in terms of spending money on myself. Again, it's another thing that's like, I haven't done that all these years very much at all. And so I guess I want to entertain what that feels like and see what the benefits are. And I look at it all as an investment in that will be paid back when I do go to travel. So working on that. Okay. So the third one I got to share with everybody here is for the first time about a week and a half ago, I did an actual polar plunge. Yes, polar plunge. I'm big on taking cold showers and experimenting with cold exposure, I guess. If you download the, the 7 steps to prime your mind for reinvention, if you sign up for the email list, you'll get that sent to you automatically. And one of the steps in there is taking a cold shower, because I think that helps you challenge your mind and make sure that you're in control of your body rather than your body being in control of you, But of course, there's side benefits to the cold exposure. That I think you get a little bit of it, when you do the cold showers, right? But this polar plunge was totally another level. Way another level. Okay, so over the summer, I was able to go out to Montana. So I went out to Montana and Utah. I just sort of did a western swing there, just to kind of get to know some of the states, And I have a friend who lives in Montana. She lives in Butte, and she brought me down to Bozeman to fly out of there, and we popped into the hot springs in Bozeman, Montana. Which, if you know what that is, it's sort of like it's kind of an old school feeling kind of place almost, where there's different plunge pools, and it's got a little bit of a 70s chill vibe to it, I would say. But they had a cold plunge there as well as the hot plunge pools. So the hot springs water there that's, I guess, rich in minerals and such. That's good for you anyways, and it's heated from the earth. But then there's also a cold plunge pool. And their cold plunge pool, I would say, I think I saw the temperature there was about 58 degrees, I would say. And it's cold. And it's not something you want to stay in that long. And super refreshing. And what's cool about it is you can jump in the cold plunge there and jump right out back into one of the warmer pools or one of the hot pools. So you have this kind of extreme situation there, and that when you jump out, you can jump into the warm water. So it's a little bit different mind trip on you there, I would say. And I kind of got addicted to the cold plunge when I was there. I must have gone in 10, 12 times. I was like, that's cool. And then you go back into the hot tub and you're sort of like just chilling and relaxing. And then you have that cold, refreshing thing in the back of your mind that you just experienced. And you're like, I got to get back in there. So you jump out and you go jump in the cold pool again. It's fun. And then you're only going to stay in for a minute or whatever, 30 seconds, whatever it is. And then you jump back in. So anyways, that was a fun experience. And I'm glad I got to do it. But it really kind of stuck in my mind. It's like I want to try to experience more of that or explore more of that kind of thing. So anyways, get back and, starting to become the fall here in Northeast Ohio, northern part of the U.S. here, and it's starting to get cold. And so there's this local Facebook group that's like Polar Plunge Cleveland or something like that. And so I had been a member of it for a while, and luckily I knew a musician friend of mine from this cute little lady from Venezuela. She's a member of it, and I saw her pictures. She's been posting her pictures the last couple of years of her extreme polar plunges with this group through the winter. So they plunge all winter long. I mean, when it's snowing outside, when it's 15 degrees outside, they're going and jumping in the water in the rivers and lakes that are close here. I'm like, this is crazy to me. But anyways, I wanted to check it out. And so luckily I knew her, so I reached out to her and I said, hey, are you plunging? I see they're starting. It's the fall here. So it was like maybe the third week of October. So it's been cool. Definitely the water's been cool, for a while now. So I went out locally here to do the plunge about 10 days ago, and it was cold. Okay, so this was a whole nother level. So this was just plunging right we went into the Chagrin River. We met around noon or 12:30 during the daytime. And what was cool about it was like I'd never gone before, and there's an organizer of the group, and there was maybe, I don't know, 8 people there. Like people kind of showed up. There was 3 or 4 early, then a few more people showed up, then a few more people showed up. We were all hanging out on the bank of the river there. And my first time, I didn't know what was going to happen. And so I'm waiting for something to happen. And I thought, well, there's a leader here that's the group leader. That's the guide, I would say, for the experience. And I kept thinking, like, okay, well, we're going to say a mantra, or we're all going to get together, or he's going to explain something. And then, it's going to be, okay, it's time to jump in, everybody. But nothing happened. We were just all standing around talking to each other. And I was asking him how he got into it, and what his experience has been, how long he's been doing it. And I was meeting some of the other people there. Oh, have you done this before? No, this is my first time. I was super nervous and scared, by the way. And then my friend Patricia showed up, and I'm like, hey, hey, cool. So she got there, so I felt a little more comfortable. But there was nothing organized about it really, other than just meeting, And then and people were in various states of dress or undress in terms of getting in the water. And anyways, what I realized was, talking to Josh, the leader, I kind of just ended up asking him, I said, so are we waiting for anything? And he's like, no, we just usually hang out here and basically procrastinate a little bit until someone just breaks the ice, so to speak, and goes in, and then we sort of it just flows naturally. I'm like, oh, okay. So I was like, it was kind of a cool experience, because nobody forces you, nobody says it's time. Maybe you're not feeling super energetic that day beforehand and whatever, so you just kind of chill, whatever. Anyway, so I just looked up and I realized, oh, hey, there's 2 people from the group were in the water. Nobody even noticed, for like a minute or 2. And so I thought, oh, well, I guess it's time to go in. Maybe the mirror neurons kick in, and you're like, all right, that's it. It's time. So I took off I had some yoga pants bottoms, so I had my swimsuit on. Had some river shoes on. No top. It was kind of, it was actually a nice fall day. It was maybe 65 degrees out, so it wasn't super cold, maybe 60 degrees, but it was sunny. But when you walk into the water's cold. Much colder than the plunge pool in Montana. And I was like, whoa, this is like another level. So you walk in. I almost fell when I walked in because of the rocky bank of the river. But I walked in, and I wanted to make sure I went under, because I want to just get the full experience. But you walk in, you realize, man, this is much colder than anything I've ever felt before. And it's like, wow. So it's kind of a shock to you. I kind of was just scared a little bit. So I walked into about waist deep, was really starting to breathe heavy, like trying to control my breath, like, whoa, this is really, I think people could see it in my face, like, I wasn't having a good time at this point, dunked myself, forced myself to do it, and then thought, okay, this is pretty heavy duty. This is really cold. This is a little bit scary. I'm not sure I should stay in here much longer. And so I basically kind of just turned around and kind of walked back out. I'm like, wow, this is cold. So I was estimating the water at about probably 50 degrees. So it's probably 10 degrees colder than what it was in Montana. And you could feel it. And it was cold enough where it was like, ooh, this actually hurts. So, the plunge in Montana was cold, but it didn't hurt. It was just cold. This was so cold that's like, ouch, like my body's in pain. Like you could feel it in your legs, and then, I got out and you could feel it in my hands. My hands were throbbing a little bit. It's like, oh man, this is cold. Shoot, Anyways, I got out, and so now you're just freezing cold, just standing on the bank of the river. Feels a little bit warmer when you get out, though. I think that's what I felt. So I was just hanging out and walking around, exploring. There was little waterfalls. Maybe I'll post a picture of it maybe I'll put it on the album cover when I release the episode, so you can see what it looked like. Beautiful scene, and there was like these sort of cascading levels to the water, like little waterfalls there in the area that we were. So I was just watching other people. Other people came out and were just having maybe a similar experience to mine. The first newbies that were there. Other people were stayed in. I mean, it was just like, wow, this is incredible that you can stay in this really cold water. So I hung out for maybe 10 minutes, and then I'm like, all right, I got to do this one more time at least. I can't. That can't be my only taste of it right now. So I went back in a second time. I think stayed a little bit longer that time, but it's like, man, I think my legs, my lower half was getting a little bit more used to it, I would say. But my upper body, my hands and arms, it was tough on that. I could dunk myself, and then I realized maybe I shouldn't keep my hands underneath the water. Maybe I should hold them up, kind of in front of my face, even though I was up to my shoulders, let's say, probably. But I realized maybe I should keep my hands out of the water because that was tough on them. So I stayed in, and I wanted to go in because my friend had gone back in, and so I just wanted to hang out with her, thank her for getting me out there to doing it as my teeth were chattering. And anyways, I came back out, and so again, I was standing on the bank of the river, and it's like, oh man, this is wild. My hands are like throbbing; they hurt. It's kind of like if you ever go skiing, your hands get too cold, and it starts to really hurt. That's what it was like. And I was like, man, I'm not sure about this, So anyways, I kind of, warmed up and everybody hung out afterwards. It was really cool scene. It was fun to hang out with the other people that were there. Just finding like-minded people that are also challenging themselves or being crazy, I guess. It's fun to, find your tribe like that. And so kind of dried off, whatever, went back to my vehicle. And what's interesting about, again, the cold thing, the real effects of the cold, when you really feel it that much, it's been shown to be a good thing for depression and, mindset and your inflammation. And there's, a few other things in the body physically that it does, And, man, you could really feel them all. You're just like, I was walking back up the hill. This was wild to me. So I'm walking back up the bank of the river. So the river, you go down maybe 100, maybe 75 feet or so as the bank of the river is lower. So you get down there. So as you were climbing back up from the riverbank up to the top of the trail where the woods are, you could feel this wave of warm air. It was so cold at the bottom of the river, and the air is cold down there because it's close to the river, whatever. So you could walk up, and you were walking up back onto this nice, like, warm sort of breeze, which is kind of wild because I guess we were that cold. The surface of your skin is that cold. Anyways, as you're walking up, you walk up into this warm breeze, and you just feel like this incredible happiness. Is the best way I can describe it, I guess. You're just sort of like, la. It's sort of like, after you've gotten a massage or something like that, where you're a little bit out of it and you're just super happy and it's just like far out, So that was a fun, residual effect of it. You could really feel it, and you felt like that for hours afterwards, which was kind of fun. But you were like super tired later. So, this is something that really stresses the body, and I guess the body reaction to it is like, it's like doing a workout or something, and you're just super tired later. So, if you want to sleep like a baby, this is a good thing for insomnia, I would say. Makes you happier, and so, next couple of days, you're just really thinking about the experience of like, man, that was crazy. You can't believe you did it. It was fun. He's glad that you accomplished something, and I think I'm going to do it again this weekend. So this past weekend, I took off. I didn't do it. I had to meet another friend of mine. Didn't work out with my schedule. But this coming Sunday, I think I'm going to be back to it. Try it again. So we'll see how it goes. I want to see how far into the winter I'm able to go with it. As the water gets colder, but as the temperature outside gets colder as well. So I thought this was a good time to start, where it's still warm enough outside where it's like, being outside in shorts with nothing else out is not that big a deal right now. And, it's 65 degrees out, whatever. Even though the water's super cold. Anyways, I figured it's a good time to get started, so I'm going to try it again. So that's the three things. Things I've been doing recently to keep reinventing myself, keep working on my reinvention. The trip from Costa Rica, MileMethod, points stuff, and the Polar Plunge. So hopefully everyone who's listening out there is continuing to work on their own reinventions. And, if you got something that you're into that you think is really working for you, let me know. You could always send me an email at JimJim@JimJim'sReinventionRevolution.com. You can tweet at me at JimJim Group on Twitter. And... or, post something on the Facebook page, JimJim's Reinvention Revolution Podcast.com. That's Facebook.com/JimJim's Reinvention Revolution Podcast, I think. Connect there and stay tuned for more episodes coming. So I got another one in the can that I'm editing right now. Real cool one, especially for people that are maybe mid career and thinking about doing something different, or think about leveraging the expertise that you have. If you're a real subject matter expert. This woman in this next episode, it's very interesting. You'll hear about her transformation from being a dentist to what she's doing now. Anyways, thanks again for listening, and here's to the next 100. Hey, Revolutionaries, if you enjoyed today's episode and today's guest, let them know by commenting on their Facebook page, finding their Twitter handle or Instagram feed, and letting them know you heard them on JimJim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, and tell them what you got out of the episode, what you really liked, or how they inspired you. I know they would get a kick out of it, and will help others find the same value that you found. Hey, for those still listening, here's a bonus track to get your blood pumping, so let's go.